of Swinburne Students for Liberty. I'm also a digital media student in the vocational education sector. A revolution is occurring around the world. It's occurring in the private sector, not the public sector. What this is the technological revolution that is happening, and it's happening at a rapid rate. The technology and internet revolution has done many great things, such as create new markets and change the way we do everything, such as communication. All this was possible through a laissez-faire free market, capitalism approach. The government commercialized the internet, and tech companies have risen, such as Apple. Technology, as I said, is always evolving at a rapid rate. I have seen massive changes in my lifetime, from my childhood to now. What would happen if the state intervenes? The answer is simple. We would be held back from the technological advances that could take humanity and civilization forward. As this picture says, if the government had taken over the internet in the 1980s, today we'd all be using dial-up and saying if it weren't for the government we would have no internet at all. And since dial-up we've seen cable as well as fiber optics advance. The benefits of digital liberty. The digital economy, as I had mentioned, it operates through online stores such as the App Store and the iTunes Store, and pretty much anyone could sell on these online markets. Social media marketing. Anyone can market anything to any demographic. Our communication has improved through social media, anonymous apps such as Wicker. Online education, this is something that I have benefited from hugely. Pretty much anyone can learn anything these days online. Digital markets, like I said, the App Store, the iTunes Store. Online dating, anyone can date anyone these days.
Yeah, we can.
I have seen gaming improvements from Xbox Live to Apple's Game Center, as well as increased self-employment as anyone can develop apps and games. The current threats, data retention, gathering all our text messages and internet activity, internet censorship, which has been enforced in some nations, wiretapping, getting our phone calls, regulation, that is a huge problem to the ISPs, hackers, which is the organized criminal stuff, but the state can do it too, and all this is linked to the nanny state and crony capitalism.
Okay.
Is it possible to get around these threats? Absolutely, but it's not impenetrable. Someday you can be watched. An example of this is the virtual private networks. I would recommend a 256 VPN, such as VPN Secure. It's very easy to get your hands on a VPN. As I mentioned, you can use very powerful technology, but it is not impossible for it to be hacked. There's always that tiny chance of it getting through. The way that these people are enforcing the threats, whether it's state or criminal, can track you is via your internet protocol address, whether it's IPv4 or IPv6. Your internet protocol address gives away your location as well as the details of your device and your computer. The ways to protect yourself from these threats, some of them are obvious. The virtual private networks could set you in a different location, as well as hide your internet activity. Tor sort of does the same thing, but it's a browser. Secure messaging, such as Wicker and Apple Messages, I would strongly recommend. Encrypted emails. To my knowledge, only Proton Mail does this, but I could be wrong. Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, I would recommend browsing in that instead of the standard HTTP. And the way to protect your accounts is via two-step verification, which to access your account, not only do you need your password, but you also need your phone with you, as it will send text messages, or in Facebook's example, you use the app to use code generator, which gives you a code. What devices can you protect? Your Mac or PC, smartphones, tablets, as well as consoles to an extent, which requires a bit more than the other devices. The debate of piracy and our threats from the state. Before I go into this, I do not condone piracy. Well, it violates property rights, but anyway. The problem with piracy in Australia is obvious. The prices and the availability. We have seen prices in Australia be higher than some nations such as the United States of America. And the availability, we're not always the first people to get our content, so how else are we going to get our content?
Piracy.
The punishments from this state are harsh if you're caught, yet the problem is so obvious. I personally believe that these threats are caused by either crony capitalism or the socialist nanny status. Either way, something is causing it. The right to privacy. One of the most cherished rights of all is the right to be left alone. When government gets more involved in telecommunications, social media, or tech companies, we lose our freedom and privacy. Could you imagine the Soviets in the Cold War, or the Nazis in World War II, getting their hands on the surveillance state technologies that we have today? The damage would be catastrophic. One day, someone will misuse and abuse the power of tapping into our privacy. There are a few companies in the private sector where we still have hope. One of them is Apple. If you have checked out their privacy statement, they will refuse government intervention, but never take our government stability for granted. Property rights. Whenever government intervenes into technology, telecommunications, or social media, they're violating property rights. They're enforcing a policy that the businesses in this field may not want to comply with. It goes beyond consent as well. It is very costly to companies. Pretty much, it's very expensive. Either the taxpayer is going to pay for it, which is ridiculous, or the ISPs are going to have to boost up their prices. Okay. Could this be linked to crony capitalism? I believe so. Entertainment companies are always lobbying to punish those who freeload and distribute their content. The problem with crony capitalism is that the state and corporations are not separate, in which, in my view of free market capitalism, they should be. Those with a lot of money under a crony system can influence government policy. Another reason why we must embrace free market capitalism instead of crony capitalism. It isn't just businesses and corporations that lobby governments. An example of this is the conservative groups like the church influence parties where there is a level of conservatism. These threats, let me be very clear, are nanny statist. Why does government have to look over my internet activity and my text messages like a jealous girlfriend? A policy like internet censorship is giving the assumption that we cannot determine the difference between right and wrong. It's not just us it victimizes by slowing down our speeds, but the ISPs as well, as it's very costly. It's not just the state to worry about. There are genuinely people that are sick out there that want to take advantage of others. They would either blackmail you or scam you once they do damage to either the technology or the accounts you own. The state isn't the only one you have to worry about.